There is a room we never fully leave. It isn't built of plaster or wood. It is built of expectation and the specific, highly calibrated silence that followed every small achievement. We talk about childhood memories as if they were photographs, discrete, static images we can pull out, examine, and place back on the shelf. But that is a profound error in classification. What truly remains of childhood is not memory. It is the residual echo. It is the low-frequency hum beneath every subsequent thought, decision, and relationship, acting as the ground state of your nervous system. It is the emotional programming that dictated the boundaries of yourself before you even had the vocabulary to object. And it was initiated by a single pivotal moment, not necessarily dramatic, not necessarily loud. Often, it was defined entirely by its absence. It was the gap between the effort you put forth and the validation you desperately needed to receive. It was the pause that lasted a second too long, or the glance that drifted just past your shoulder, or the tone of voice that implied, without ever saying, that your existence was, perhaps, slightly inconvenient. This single, uncorrected moment of miscalibration became the first mirror. It was the surface into which you looked, searching for evidence of your own inherent worth, only to find the reflection was cloudy, conditional, and dependent entirely on your capacity for flawless performance. And from that instant, the core contract was written. You are not valuable simply because you are here. You are valuable only insofar as you successfully manage the emotional atmosphere around others. Consider the moment. It probably feels insignificant when you try to trace it. A blip. A slight deflection of attention. You might be focusing on the specific event, the crayon drawing held up for praise, the carefully arranged toys meant to demonstrate order, the shy declaration of a feeling. But the event itself is irrelevant. The only thing that matters is the interpretation your child self imposed upon the ensuing silence. That interpretation became the operating system. When a child's core offering is met with indifference or worse, a subtle implication that the adult's internal landscape is too fragile to accommodate the child's spontaneous joy or need, the child does not conclude that the adult is flawed. The child concludes that their offering is flawed. They conclude that they are the disturbance, and survival instincts immediately kick in. If being large, loud, and spontaneous causes friction, the system must reduce the friction. The identity begins to self-edit, sometimes instantaneously, sometimes over years, refining itself into a muted, less demanding shape. This is the genesis of the internal tension that drives the adult world. We become obsessed with predicting the emotional needs of others before they articulate them, because that is the foundational survival skill we mastered in the waiting room of early approval. We developed a psychic antenna, highly sensitive, often painful, that scans the environment for micro-cues of displeasure, fear, or boredom. And every moment of perceived threat, the sharp email response, the vague text message, the canceled plan, doesn't register as a neutral event. It registers as a relapse into that childhood room. It is the sudden, terrifying confirmation that the original diagnosis was correct. You are still a disturbance. This isn't just theory. You can observe its physical manifestation. Watch how your body carries itself when you are asked a direct question about your desires. Observe the slight collapse in your posture when you have to state a boundary. Notice the compulsive need to add layers of explanation, justification, and pre-apology before expressing a simple preference. We do this because the child learned that the raw, unqualified statement of need was met not with validation, but with a complex emotional burden the adult was unwilling or unable to carry. So, we learn to package ourselves preemptively. We wrap our desires in qualifiers and disclaimers. We reduce the volume of our true voice because we are still afraid of the original consequence. The silence that implies, "You are too much, and I cannot see you right now." This specific kind of emotional programming creates an adult self that is always operating on borrowed light. You cannot generate your own sense of certainty. You must reflect the certainty offered by the external world. If the outside source dimmers, you feel extinguished. If the external source is conditional, your efforts become infinite. And that is the relentless engine of ambition and self-sabotage. The simultaneous drive to achieve the external proof, and the deep, unconscious certainty that you will never be worthy enough to sustain it. We spend our 20s, our 30s, sometimes our entire lives, running retroactive diagnostics on that single, unrepeatable moment. We construct elaborate adult scenarios, high-stakes careers, demanding relationships, meticulous social calendars, all designed to replicate the original conditions, but this time with the hope of changing the outcome. We put the drawing up on the refrigerator, metaphorically, hoping that, this time, the pause will be replaced by a clear, unqualified look of adoration. And because we are subconsciously seeking the exact frequency of the childhood emotion, the pain of being unseen, we often choose partners and environments that are meticulously designed to recreate the original neglect. We confuse familiar with safe. We seek out the people who are emotionally unavailable, because unavailability is the native emotional climate of that first mirror. It validates the original architecture. If you find yourself perpetually chasing connection, a connection that always feels just beyond your reach, like a shadow you can never quite step into, you are not pursuing a future relationship. You are pursuing a retroactive correction to a childhood wound. You are still trying to hold up that crayon drawing and hear the words that never came. And this creates a profound psychological latency. Your true self, the self that existed before the required edits, is delayed. It is always waiting in the wings, holding its breath, listening for the cue that never arrives. The adult functions, moves, pays taxes, and enters contracts. But internally, the original, small self is frozen, suspended in the moment of silent judgment. It is the phenomenon of feeling perpetually 15% absent from your own life. It's the sense that the camera lens isn't quite focused on you, but rather on the space next to you, where a better version of you might be standing. And the tension ratchets up when you begin to notice that the people who love you now, the people who see you clearly and value you unconditionally, do not seem to penetrate that central core of doubt. Their validation lands softly on the surface, but the root system of your identity remains starved. Why? Because the original programming dictates that true safety is not found in receiving love, but in earning it under duress. Unconditional love feels confusing, even dangerous. It feels like an error in the system, a vulnerability that needs to be urgently corrected by finding the flaw that they inevitably missed. We self-sabotage not to fail, but to test the endurance of the love being offered. We are asking unconsciously, does your love survive my unedited, unrefined, potentially inconvenient self? Or will you too give me that particular kind of silence? The most painful realization is not what you lost, but what you gained. A crippling proficiency in anticipating rejection. This proficiency becomes the lens through which all reality is processed. A compliment is not proof of success. It is proof that you temporarily fooled someone. A moment of peace is not a reward. It is the prelude to an inevitable disaster. This is the architecture of the hypervigilant adult, the one who can never simply relax into the present moment. Because the present moment is defined by the echoes of that ancient room. And the room was never empty. It was filled with the pressure of unspoken expectations, the subtle mandate to prioritize the comfort of the parental system above the authenticity of the self. We call this moment the childhood trauma, but that word feels too large, too clinical. It minimizes the specificity. It was not a trauma, it was a decision. The decision of the environment to impose a boundary, and the resulting decision of the child to comply by shrinking. And every time you feel that crushing weight of self-doubt now, that profound physical sensation of not being enough, you are not accessing a past memory. Your body is merely defaulting to its oldest, most practiced position of safety, the compliance of smallness. The system believes that if you make yourself invisible, you cannot be hurt. If you preemptively reject your own desires, the world cannot deny them. If you remain a ghost in your own life, you escape the consequence of having been fully, vulnerably present. And the pursuit of happiness becomes the pursuit of the moment. Before, the pause, the frantic, desperate effort to return to a state of grace before the contamination of judgment set in. But that state of grace never existed. It was the illusion of the first mirror, the promise that if you only perform the perfect movement, the mirror will finally reflect the whole, unbroken self, and the mirror never broke. It simply reflected back the condition of the light, showing you not what you are, but what you must endlessly become to finally